Good evening, YouTube. My name is Dan with GBGH Studios, reporting to you live from Eagan, Minnesota, my residence, on the evening of Saturday, December 28th, 2013. And you should know by now to go big or go home. It is the eve before the final Vikings game at the Metrodome. I'll be at the game. Should be a interesting scene. I'm sure it'll be quite surreal, and really looking forward to seeing what kind of finale the Vikings and the staff put on in what has been a disappointing season, to say the least. As for the Metrodome, you can say what you want. Maybe not the most glamorous of stadiums, but the venue is one of the only venues to host a Super Bowl, multiple World Series, a Major League Baseball All-Star Game, and multiple Final Fours. There's been a lot of history at the Dome, a lot of classic games, and a lot of disappointment as well. I'm hoping that tomorrow they can come out and give us a bright spot in what has, again, been an otherwise disappointing season for the Minnesota Vikings. Our last video was a couple weeks ago, so we do have a little bit to cover here. I'm solo tonight. Didn't want to get a video done before the game tomorrow, and hopefully have my anchor Chris after the game to break down the Vikings season and what to look for in the draft. As for this video, we had not broken down the Eagles' victory, which was a very nice win, probably the best game, most complete game the Vikings have played this season. The Vikings did defeat Philadelphia 48-30, and again, Castle and company played great. Got some turnovers, and pretty much were unstoppable all day. The Philadelphia defense was not good and has kind of been their weak link. But they will have a big game tomorrow with Dallas. But the Vikings did win, and that game was at the Dome. Vikings have played well at home, but just haven't been great on the road at all. Been good at all. Haven't won a game, and did lose last weekend to Cincinnati, 42-14, and what was quite the reversal from the Eagles game. Castle had one of his worst games as a Viking, and it should be interesting to see what they do with the quarterback position next year. Castle, which has kind of been his forte, is just inconsistent. He has been pretty good this year. He hasn't had too many bad games. The Carolina game and then the game in Cincinnati, he was pretty bad, but didn't get a lot of help from the offensive line, and he wasn't the only problem last weekend. The defense obviously was horrific, and yeah, it was just a bad game. So right now we're at 4-10-1 going into the last game with the Lions tomorrow. Again, the finale at the Dome before they take it down. And tomorrow, I just heard that Peterson has officially been ruled out of the game. I think as of 3 hours ago. He is out. Gerhardt is out, so it will be Asiata and Baynard for the running backs. Castle will be starting again, so it'll be interesting to see if Ponder takes another snap in a Minnesota uniform, so yeah, we'll see what happens. But the Lions are out of the playoffs tomorrow. There'll be no playoff implications, which is one of the few games that don't have playoff implications. So it'll just be either the Vikings winning their last home game, going out with a win, or the Lions getting to 500. So the Lions are in the midst of yet another collapse at the end of the season. So Jim Schwartz and Leslie Frazier should be interesting to see if both those guys are gone after the season. My opinion is that Frazier, is a great guy and all that, but he has done enough to lose his job. With the Ponder experiment, whether or not Spielman was pressuring Frazier to start Ponder or not. My opinion all along was that Frazier's, was going to either live or die with Ponder, and since Ponder's career has quite obviously gone up in flames, it looks like Frazier will be out as well. So I do think if Frazier were to stay, that both coordinators would need to be fired. So definitely need changes in the coaching department. It didn't help with the injuries for the Vikings, but every team has injuries, and the Vikings just didn't perform this year, and it is disappointing. It was disappointing, the result last week in Cincinnati, and the fact that they were blown out and weren't even competitive. That was very disappointing, and I think that might have been the final nail in Leslie's coffin. So we'll see what happens, but that's just my opinion on it. The Gophers last night lost to Syracuse in what was a typical Gopher meltdown in the last 2 minutes. They have now lost 6 ball games in a row. Gophers had a nice season at 8-4, but did lose the last 3 games, including last night's bowl game, to finish the season 8-5. Now, granted, that is an improvement from the last season at 6-7, and in the previous season in 2011, where the Gophers were 3-9. So in Jerry Kill's 3 seasons, they have improved. That is a plus. The negative is obviously the bowl loss to a pretty mediocre Syracuse team that didn't even become bowl eligible until the last game of the season. So that was disappointing. But the Gophers, on the plus side, like I said, were 8-5, and expectations will be that much higher next year. It will be interesting to see if Philip Nelson or Mitch Leidner starts at QB. I do think they need to figure that out. Much like the Vikings quarterback situation, the Golden Gopher football team, also a question mark at quarterback, which is obviously the most important position for any team. So if they can get that figured out, both teams, that would be nice. Gopher hockey, men's and women's, off until after the new year, so nothing to really report with them. Minnesota Wild are struggling right now, especially on the road. One of the best home teams in the NHL, but one of the worst road teams in the NHL. They have lost 4 road games in a row in regulation, have gotten no points in a couple of weeks. They only have 1 road win in the last 10 road games, so they're definitely struggling right now. They're out of the playoff picture in the 9th spot, 1 point behind the Coyotes for 8th. The Wild, like we were probably saying at the beginning of the season, are probably going to be fighting for that 6th seed through 8th seed. I don't think they're any better than that right now. They are still a couple players away, and right now they're out of the playoff picture altogether. So they do need to get it going. They do have 4 home games in a row coming up, starting tomorrow with the New York Islanders. So hopefully they can get on the winning track and get back into that playoff bubble. And for the Wild, Backstrom's been starting the last few games while Josh Harding's getting his health figured out, and obviously struggling. Backstrom has given up, I think, at least 4 goals in all the games he started, so not getting much help on the defensive end, but giving up a lot of goals, something Harding was not doing. So it starts with goaltending. The Wild did score 4 goals last night in Winnipeg, but lost 6-4, so go figure. Need to figure it out on the road. You like to be 500 on the road. I think for any playoff team, take care of your home games and go 500 on the road, and everybody's happy. So Wild right now are 20-15-5 through 40 games, so almost halfway there. So Wild need to pick it up. Timberwolves got a win last night against the Washington Wizards at Target Center. They have gone 3-3 since our last video, so right around 500 right now. They're at 14-15, 1 game below 500, with a game tonight in Milwaukee. So they seem to always get to 500, but they can't get above 500. So their next 2 games are in Milwaukee, and then they host Dallas. So you like to think 2 winnable games there. But it's the Timberwolves. They have been inconsistent, and it's reflected in their 14-15 record right now. So see what happens with the Wolves. Right now they're 10th in the West, so kind of like the Wild, just out of it. But the Wolves are 2 games back. of the 8th seed, whereas the Wild are 1 point back. Minnesota Twins, not much to report on them. Twins Fest is going to be coming up here, but not for a couple months. But no real notable signings as of late. And that is pretty much it with Minnesota sports. I think you're up to date now. Again, Vikings tomorrow, Vikings and Lions at noon on Sunday. Hopefully the Vikings can win their last game at the Metrodome, unlike their last game at the Met. The Vikings have won 14 out of 15 with the Lions at home since 1997. Ironically, I was at the 1997 game where the Vikings lost 14-13 in the last 3 seconds of the game, which is a pretty fitting first game for any Vikings fan, as they seem to always or never fail to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So you always have that in the back of your mind. But I still love them, so let's hopefully get a win tomorrow and close the dome with a win. With that, my name is Dan with GBGH Studios. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Happy New Year, and SKOL Vikes.